Hi everyone, my name is Stephen Stewart, and on behalf of Mistango River Resources, welcome to our latest webinar. We're going to run through what's happened in Mistango over the last maybe let's just call it 6 months since we've took over at the end of October. We've recapitalized it. We've been well financed. We've got Eric Sprott in. We've made a major acquisition up along the Kirkland Lake Macassa's mine, and I think we're in a really good position. And we're going to take this opportunity to tell everybody about what we're going to be doing going forward, but also shed a little bit of light on Kirkland Lake and the mile of gold, because we really believe that Mistango is analogous for Kirkland Lake. We're one of the largest landholders there. That's where our assets are. We have two substantial land packages there with lots of gold in the ground. But Kirkland Lake is often confused for Kirkland Lake Gold and vice versa. They are synonymous in effect. I mean, the town and the company. So let's get into it, shed a little light on the history of Kirkland Lake, the Macassa, and how Mistango fits into all of this. Here's the disclaimer. Everybody knows this. Let's get into the agenda. I'm going to talk about 7 simple things, go into detail on each. I'm going to talk about Mistango, give a brief recap. I'm going to talk about Kirkland Lake, the town, and what's called the Golden Mile, and it really is the Golden Mile. It's 25 million ounces in a single ore body that has been mined. Not many people appreciate that. All these 7 mines, including the Macassa, which is the one in operation, are a single ore body. It is the 3rd largest ore body that I'm aware of, and I believe it's a fact that's ever been mined. The Super Pit in Kalgoorlie, as well as the Hollinger mine, would be number 1 and number 2. And the Hollinger mine was mined for 100 years, and this one's been mined for 80 years. So these are massive ore bodies, and we're on the western side of it. And I'm taking a bet, calculated bet, that that ore body still got a lot of gold in there. Then we're going to talk about the Macassa mine specifically. So that is obviously reference to Kirkland Lake Gold Incorporated, run by Tony McCooch and formerly of Eric Sprott being the chairman. Then we'll get into Agnico Eagle and how they got into the district. I would say they are the largest landholder in the area with their Upper Beaver, Upper Canada deposits there. We'll talk about their provenance, meaning how they got there. And, spoiler alert, that was the old Queenston asset, but we'll explain that. Then we'll shift into Mistango's Abbey Baldwin, which is our asset directly west and on strike to the Macassa. We're contiguous to it. We've got 4,000 hectares in the Abbey Baldwin. Then I'll talk about the Omega mine, which is a little further east. The Omega mine is on trend to the Kerr-Addison and strategic to Orefinders, and Orefinders has a direct relationship to Mistango and the history of our group becoming involved. And that's how I'll finish off this webinar with a summary, a recap of the dramatic hostile saga of how Orefinders and Mistango came to be their sister companies, but from a different mother. So I should say they're distinct, but certainly related in the sense that Orefinders is a significant shareholder, and I'm clearly involved with both. So let's go. Here's the map. I show on this map, I show the Abbey Baldwin, I show Agnico Eagle, I show Macassa. So this is the Macassa in gray. This is the highest grade mine in Canada, one of the highest grade mines in the world. And this is the Abbey Baldwin here in brown. This is Mistango River Resources asset. It's owned 100%. These are patented claims, meaning we don't have any work obligations on them. Patents are exactly the type of claims we want. You can see here, and I'll get into a little more detail, but the faults run right through our property. These are the amalgamated, the Main, the Cadillac, and the Carena faults, and we call it the confluence of where the faults meet on our Abbey Baldwin. That's not insignificant. As I said, Macassa here, they mine 20 plus grams per ton, pretty significant. This is Agnico, and they're a very large land package here in pink. This is the Omega, which is Mistango River Resources established, if you will, resource. This has got about, just round figure, 600,000 ounces, pretty good grades for it's very near surface. And it was the original region we went after Mistango because, as I said, I'm also involved with Orefinders, and you can see Orefinders has 2 properties here. One is called the McGarry, which is adjacent to the Kerr-Addison mine, which is a significant deposit and former producing mine. They mined almost 12 million ounces over here. And then we've got another asset here. So you can see here are all the players in the area. Obviously, Kirkland, Agnico are the 2 big guys, but Mistango and Orefinders are nipping at their heels. So This is another thing. So again, you know, to sort of, I want to keep the two companies, Ore Finders and Mistango, distinct. However, they are related. When Mr. Eric Sprott made an investment into Ore Finders, it made the front page of the Northern Miner. It got a lot of attention. What sort of flew under the radar is the very next day, we announced he did a very similar, albeit almost identical, investment in Mistango. So when it says here, Sprott bets on Ore Finders, well, guess what? He bet on Mistango as well. Very few people, believe it or not, know that, just because it flew under the radar. By the time this interview had been made, we hadn't publicly announced the Mistango investment by Mr. Sprott, and hence it didn't make the paper. But hey, it's no less newsworthy, in my opinion. A lot of people ask, why did Eric Sprott invest in Ore Finders and Mistango simultaneously? Well, I can say, you know, obviously I'd like to pat my team on the back. I think clearly he has respect for our team, but being in Kirkland Lake, given the land packages here that both Mistango and Ore Finders have, are substantial. And I think it's a widely known secret that Mr. Sprott did okay in the Kirkland Lake camp before. So here he goes again. So let's talk a little bit about the town of Kirkland Lake itself. Again, it's often synonymous with Kirkland Lake Gold Incorporated, but it's got a long and storied history long before Kirkland Lake Gold became a going concern, or at least the famous going concern that it was. I would encourage anybody who's interested in history, Canadiana, gold, to read this book. I read it over the new year. It's called Murdered Midas. It's the story of Sir Harry Oakes, who I knew very little about, but it's actually one of the most interesting stories in Canadian history. This guy was a prospector, a man of the bush, and he worked and toiled very, very hard for decades, living as a pauper, until he found what became the Lakeshore Mine. And the Lakeshore Mine produced 8.5 million ounces of very high-grade gold. It shut down in 1965. Long story short, Mr. Oakes made Kirkland Lake what it is. He was arguably the wealthiest man in the world at the time of his untimely death, and he was murdered in the Bahamas, and it's an unsolved mystery. So without getting into the details or any spoilers, read the book. The first 5 chapters are all about Kirkland Lake. Incredibly interesting. But Harry Oakes is a well-known guy to this day up in Kirkland Lake. His old home is now the mining center, and he is, as I said, synonymous with Kirkland Lake. So that's just gives you a little bit of flavor about how the town came to be known as the Mile of Gold, because the Lakeshore and the Macassa itself were just one of a number of mines. I list 6 here. If you drive up into the town, you will see this billboard here. It says, "Welcome to Kirkland Lake, the hub of the North and the Mile of Gold, the great gold mines of Kirkland Lake, the Macassa, the Kirkland Minerals, Tech Hughes, Lakeshore, Wright Hargraves, and the Sylvanite. Together, that's 25 million ounces from a single ore body." And that's why they call it the Mile of Gold, because all these are very proximate. And I'll point out here, so we got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Macassa, this is the one that is in operation right now. It is, again, the same ore body. They're just mining it from different sections. And guess who's over here? Mistango River Resources and its Abbey Baldwin property. And as I said off the top, we're taking an educated guess based on more than just our gut. There is all sorts of gold that has been mined and drilled on our property, but it obviously needs more work to define that this ore body does, in fact, continue to the west. Time will tell. So that was just a very brief primer on the town of Kirkland Lake, which is a beautiful little town. About 4,000 people thereabouts live there. But more commonly known would be Kirkland Lake Gold. That's the company run by Tony McCooch. Mr. Sprott was, of course, the chairman of it for a long time. He resigned maybe about 6 months ago, and it's well known that he did very well when he got involved with Kirkland Lake, I believe in about 2015, and turned it around for a number of reasons. But the history of Kirkland Lake Gold, it goes back quite a bit. 1933, it had many incarnations, and many big name mining companies include Barrick Gold, Kinross, were involved and former owners of what is now known as the Macassa and those other mines. And it was, the sort of in a more modern era, it was a gentleman by the name of Harry Dobson, a very wealthy, successful mining entrepreneur out of the UK. He purchased the Kirkland Lake operations for $5 million from Kinross. And what they did was they actually mined the tailings. And when I say mined, I mean they processed or reprocessed the tailings from Sir Harry Oak's Lakeshore mine. And that was how Kirkland Lake, in a modern sense, got restarted. And they actually made money, and it turned around, and it sort of went along on its way. They used those funds to go back underground. The mine's rather deep, and it became a going concern. And Kirkland Lake has been a thing ever since. And it wasn't until about 2013 that when a gentleman by the name of George Ogilvy, George runs, what's the name of the company? Another well-known turnaround in progress, but George is a very well-respected mining engineer, and he came in there and he decided, look, we got to focus on grades over tons. And that was during the George Ogilvy era, and he sort of was credited for turning it around and starting to make money out of that mine once again, because it is so high grade. So they dropped the tons significantly, but they increased the grade, and now it's become one of the highest grade mines in the world. Shortly thereafter, Eric Sprott came in, made a substantial investment in 2015. Not sure how many shares he owns, but a lot. And then he brought in Mr. McCooch. Tony is also a very well-known guy. I won't get into the details of Tony, but Tony is a well-respected guy, actually ran Lakeshore Mines prior to that. And then quite famously, Mr. Sprott and Tony acquired what was then called Newmarket Gold. And Newmarket Gold's flagship asset was the mine down in Australia. The name escapes me. It's Fosterville. And Fosterville ended up being kind of like another Macassa. It was a sort of a regular mine, if you will, and then all of a sudden they drilled a new zone, the Swan Zone, and got grades that were just eye-popping. And then the rest is history in terms of making money as a shareholder of Kirkland Lake. It was just a wild success story from 2015. $1, $2, up to a high of 62. Then we know it bought Detour, and the market had mixed feelings, but I still think that was a good deal. Time will tell, and I think Kirkland Lake is one of the better companies out there these days. They've got super high grade mines in both Macassa and Fosterville. They hedged their bets by buying a 25, 30-year mine life reserve in Detour, in the best jurisdiction in the world. And more importantly, closer to home in Kirkland Lake on the Macassa, they've got shaft number 4. I've driven by it a number of times. It's set to open in the next year or two. Effectively, what that's going to do is double the production, double in terms of ounces, double the ounces coming out of the Macassa mine. And what's called the South Mine Complex, which is a somewhat recent new discovery in that area. They used to be mining what's called the main break, and that's where a lot of the gold out of Kirkland came off. But now this South Mine Complex, which refers to what's called the amalgamated break. These are two different major structures, and structures is incredibly important, especially in these types of mines. So you probably hear about the South Mine Complex. That is analogous to the amalgamated break, and the gold is going to double out of Kirkland Lake Macassa soon. Let's not forget the other great miner. Again, just a flashback here. We've got Kirkland Lake in the gray, but the big pink is Agnico Eagle, one of the most respected, if not the most respected, mining companies in the industry. I believe this is their next mine, certainly their next mine in their portfolio. The provenance of this asset comes to them. When Agnico and Yamana bought Osisko Gold Royalties, the Osisko 1 back in 2012, I believe. 2012, as I say there, they acquired a whole bunch of other assets outside of the Malartic. Shortly thereafter, Agnico Eagle took out Yamana in terms of their exploration assets. So Yamana still has interest in the Malartic, but everything else that was involved in the original Osisko came back to Agnico. And so Agnico's the Upper Beaver and the Upper Canada deposits. They're substantial, they're good grades, they're large. It's in a great jurisdiction that Agnico Eagle loves. So the bottom line is very simple. Agnico Eagle, which effectively owns the formerly known as Queenston deposit, along with Kirkland Lake, are the two major players in Kirkland Lake. Good neighbors to have. Okay, so let's talk about our stuff. This is the Abbey Baldwin. Okay, so as I referred to, Mistango has two different asset land packages, very similar approximately, but they're distinct, different, in fact, different styles of mineralization, different events, geological events, believe it or not. Certainly that's what we think. On the left, you can see how this is how the Abbey Baldwin was acquired when we acquired Mistango in terms of the board from the previous management. This is, we didn't really fully understand what they owned. We had to do title searches, figure everything out, which was part of our process. We really liked what they had there, but as you can see, it's patchy. Since then, this has happened in the last few months. We've been quite aggressive in growing our land package. We announced a deal a week or two ago that saw us come up all on the western contiguous side of the Macassa in gray here. And we've also expanded here the filled out the property. And I should note, and you'll see it in later slides, this is where you want to be on the east to west area. These are where the structures come through the Cadillac. And in fact, it kind of sort of follows here, even though this is a highway, the highways tend to follow the breaks. And so this is where you want to be. But there's all sorts of major structural faults in this area, which I'll show better later. Yeah, this slide is just telling you about this deal here. This what we call the hinterland transaction. It's the Tech Right project that we acquired. We got a good deal, I would say. We paid about $100,000, and we got rewarded with how much did we get? Almost $3 million in market cap. So that's a 30 times investment that in terms of market cap that we got rewarded for. I'd say that was a good deal. Very opportunistic of us. I think our investors can expect us to certainly attempt to do more deals like that. Can't guarantee that type of return, but that was a good deal. Here is a closer look of how our interpretations of the breaks here. And I can, as I said, this area here is really the confluence of breaks. We've got, this is the main break. So the main break here is very famous. That's, you can see that's where all these mines are, all the Kirkland Lake mines. This is the most famous break in the area for sure. The amalgamated break is what's new. This is where the South Mine Complex comes from. And this is where they've been getting incredibly high grades as of late. And then, of course, the Cadillac break, which is world famous. And the Cadillac break is very mineralized further over to the east, over by, more by the Omega, which is the 600,000 ounces that Mistango owns and where Orefinders is. And the Cadillac is also home to the world famous Kerr Addison mine, which is certainly in play these days as well. And then finally, we have the Karana break, which comes and it comes from a northeast fashion, and it comes and it intersects these main breaks. And again, real estate is all about structure, or I should say, mining is all about structure. And you definitely want to be where these things cross-cut, because that creates faults or traps, I should say, for the mineralization. When it sort of hits a headway, it precipitates and it pools. And so that's going to be an area where we're going to be focused on. And you can see here, Macassa has a head grade here in 2018 of 20 grams. Well, same in the Baldwin mine, which we own. Small production, but super high grade, and it hasn't been explored at depth. So expect us to do a lot of work on the Abbey Baldwin project going forward. We're in the right real estate, and we've got structure. And as I say, structure. That's Andy Jackson from Sprott, who always says that. He's right. And this is, I know it's a little hard to make out. This kind of looks like Jerry Garcia's t-shirt here in tie-dye, but this is our land package here, and this is where all the Macassa stuff is. But what you're seeing in the high, the neon pink, those are the main faults. And are the interpretation from the mag, and this is the tilt derivative. But this is where you want to be. You want to be. It doesn't, just because it's pink doesn't mean there's gold. But these are tools to help us narrow in on various theories that obviously have to be drill tested. You can see there have been some drill results, been very encouraging drill results. There's been some mines here, some shafts, but we've got very high res mag. We have very high res IP. And we're going to be going out in the field very soon in order to follow this up. I mean, we have not put boots on the ground yet ourselves as the new management on this property yet, because it's been snowed over ever since we've been in control But as soon as it's pragmatically practical to do so, we're going to get boots on the ground onto this property, and all with the objective, very simply, of moving it forward towards the drill bit so we can discover an ore body. Simple as that. That's the plan. Okay, so moving forward, this is our other asset. Again, I'm going to flip back very quickly to set the table as I talk about it, but this is the Omega asset. Okay, so I've been here talking about Mistango's Abbey Baldwin, which it owns 100%. Now I'm going over here about 20-30 kilometers to the east, over to the Omega. This is the 600,000 ounces here at near surface at good grades for a surface style resource. We went after Mistango. When I say we, I mean Ore Finders, who was a 31% shareholder, went after Mistango because it had these resources and it was quite complementary to our portfolio. And then we were pleasantly surprised, and then has since grown this substantially. And in fact, this is, I think, is really where our a lot of attention is going to be put forward. But we're certainly not going to ignore 600,000 ounces on the Cadillac. We've got the Kerr Addison here, the McGarry, or otherwise known as the Armistice. We've got Gatling, who's here. They've got about 1 million ounces. Then, of course, Agnico. I won't get too much into detail of that, as I already have. But so this is the Omega, and it's a fine resource. Absolutely, we have a plan in place. We spent the first number of months digitizing all the data. We've published on our website on mistango.com exactly what our game plan is in terms of expanding it. We think it definitely has million-ounce potential. It just requires the drill. So we will get to that as well. That's definitely part of the plan. So Omega is really about expanding, taking 600,000 ounces, moving it towards the million-ounce and beyond, whereas the Abbey Baldwin is all about discovery of a new ore body, maybe something that looks like Macassa. Who knows? So as I wrap this webinar up, for those who are new to the story, I'll give a brief recap. For those who have followed Ore Finders and Mistango will know very well what happened. And I won't get into the details, but you know, the spoiler alert, it's a happy ending. And here's what happened. Here's how Ore Finders became a major shareholder of Mistango, and here's how our group became the board of directors of Mistango. So in May of 2019, Ore Finders was in discussions with, and ultimately came to an agreement with Osisko Gold Royalties to do a share swap. So Ore Finders gave 5 million of its shares in exchange for nearly 12 million shares of Mistango River Resources, who was then run by another group, who incidentally are completely gone. That equated to 31% of Mistango River Resources. We, in good faith, attempted to make some changes with the existing management, who were unwilling to accept any changes, and that resulted in what's called a proxy battle. And it was a little bit of a hostile proxy battle, one that I don't recommend, but it certainly, as I said, it was a happy ending. But it took 2 hostile annual AGMs, each with shareholder votes, both of which when I say I mean Ore Finders slate of directors won. It should be known by investors that there's all sorts of things that a management team can do to refute the wishes of shareholders, even if there's a shareholder vote. It was really an eye-opening experience to how investors are really left to their own devices. There was really, it was up to ourselves as investors to force a change, even when shareholders were asking for it. Management has an awful lot of control if they don't want to listen to shareholders and if they don't care about their reputation. So I won't get too deep into that, but if you are interested, follow our news releases throughout 2019. Both Mistango, former management, and Ore Finders were quite public in their stance. But the long story short is on October 22nd, Ore Finders' slate of directors wins. Hurrah! And it's been that way ever since. So the former management and the former board in their entirety, to be clear, have nothing to do with Mistango River Resources. It's new management, new board, and it's been reborn. Since then, we've recapitalized it with the seed financing back in December. We put $500,000, 25% of which was mine, into this company to get it back on its feet. Then we sorted the situation out, both corporately, technically, legally, there was a whole lot of work to make heads or tails of the situation, and that's when we really discovered the Abbey Baldwin situation. And then, of course, we recapitalized it in a more proper fashion just recently with Mr. Sprott coming in, and then we made the acquisition or the expansion of the Abbey Baldwin. And so that's where we are today. And it's April. We're going to be out on in the field on both properties, the Omega and the Abbey Baldwin. As soon as breakup occurs, usually that's around May. Obviously, that's if we're practically allowed to and everything is safe. We'll get out there, boots on the ground. That's step number one. Step number two is to drill, and our goal is simple: find an ore body. So wish us luck. My name's Stephen Stewart. If you have any questions, my contacts are here. I get back to all of our shareholders within a day or so. So thank you for your time, and we'll talk soon.